Hey everybody, it's Jane Johnston with the Briar Hill Group at Remax Camosun, host of Vancouver Island Time and co-host with...
Hello, Andrew Plank with Royal LePage.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. Happy Monday again. Busy week.
Did you have a good weekend?
I had a great weekend. Yeah, super busy. Good times, and it was sunny. So what can you got? Love it.
Did you find anything different in the market this past week?
I'm hearing colleagues talk about how it's slowing a bit and the heat's a little bit off. I'm certainly really active with a lot of buyers. I have a big backlog of buyers. So that's good news for us if that's truly the case. I think we've reached that point, and Jane, you had a great visual on this, but I think we've reached the point where the prices have balanced with the demand, perhaps. So prices are still really high. They're still, hard to find good properties, but easier than it was. And we're maybe not seeing as many multiple offers, or the multiple offers aren't receiving as much activity. Like you mentioned, actually having a property where you got multiple offers, but they were conditional. We can't depend on unconditional offers for every listing, nor could we ever. But yeah, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So, previously, and actually these buyers came in from out of town, so I was trying to educate them really quickly about what was happening. And I was saying, a month ago, I was saying that when we're going in, we have our 50% chance of winning, or 75% chance, and our 95% chance of winning.
Yeah.
And our 50% chance of winning was at list price.
Yeah.
Our 75 was, this much higher, and then our 95. And so now we can come in at more the 50 and 75% chance of winning price and actually win it. If you know what I'm saying?
You're saying that it's changed. The 50% chance of winning price is now the 80 or 95% chance of winning price.
Yeah, we're the markets. I think the outliers, some of my handy dandy.
You're very high tech, Jane. I love it.
I know.
Could you go into that? Because you've shown this before, and I think that needs a little contextual description.
Okay. So this is the seller's price range. And what people were doing is they're pricing it down here. And this is the buyers.
Okay, so this is their expected price range, or the price range they could go within. And the bottom is low price and the high is high price. And you're saying sellers are asking a certain amount and they would accept within this range. Buyers are hoping to pay within a certain range. If there's overlap, you have a sale.
That's market value.
Yeah. Okay.
And when you look at buyers, obviously there's more buyers lower down. Like, for instance, I looked at a townhouse yesterday. It was priced at $760 for 3 beds plus, an extra level in the basement.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is going to go for 8 something. And because it's underpriced. So it was priced here. So there were tons of cards when I went to view it. So this is the market that has access to it. And you can see when you're pricing your house, if like between here and here, you actually, if you price at the higher range, you're going to miss a lot of these people. And what was happening over the past year was, I'd say since July, is the outliers were winning these people at the top. And these people who were offering at market value were not being successful. And I think the outliers are going.
Yeah, perhaps the outliers have all purchased, or we've reached the point where everyone's an outlier. Because I think prices have definitely come up, and I don't see them diminishing. I just see that we've kind of reached a point where we've kind of maybe approaching a plateau.
Yeah.
So in every market, we're going to look at stats today. But I was just going to say, I know, so exciting. But in every market, you get multiple offers for great properties. In a tight market where there's only so many so many sellers and lots of buyers, that's where we just have so much more activity. And Jane's illustration with that pyramid is really saying at a price point, if you list your home for $1, everyone in the world who has $1 is going to say, I'll take it, right? If you list your home for $1 billion, only if there's a certain person with specialized knowledge that there's a diamond mine under the property is ever going to pay that. That's the outlier. So, I mean, those are two extreme examples, but that pyramid gets to a point and there's nobody above at a certain point. But it's really the more like middle ground of the pyramid where you've got reasonable number of buyers willing to pay a reasonable price. And in a normal market, that's how it works. But because of so much heat on the market, people are coming in from outside and saying, I need to stand out of the crowd from these normal buyers. I'm going to pay more. But we've kind of reached the point where that's kind of worked through the system. We shall see.
I think it has. And a great example is, so we were looking at a property in Gordon Head, and I was looking at the exact same properties in January. There was nothing available.
Yeah.
And we literally looked at 10 homes.
Right. Yeah.
And so we had a choice. And then what I said to the buyers was, I'm just hoping that the fact that there's choice means that we won't have competition. There was only one other buyer.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a conversation with some buyers this morning who said, why did we find our dream home on our first try? There must be something wrong with the house, because we've heard, how hard it is to buy a house in Victoria. And we found them a great home, got them a great offer, got it accepted, and now they're second guessing themselves. It's like, no, it's good.
So I had buyers who said that too.
Yeah.
And so and they're high knowledge people who like to know everything that's going on. And we had done all the stats. So I told them today I'll send you the statistics. But what I'm seeing here is, I'll show you what I sent them. I sent them the stats right here so that they could be happy. Yeah, it's funny, like psychology is an interesting thing, because if they have FOMO, they feel like they're going to not win, then they bid higher. And then when there's choice, they're like, well, I don't need to buy.
It's really funny, because when there is too much selection, and I remember this from my days of running the camera shop, if someone came into my shop and I had a whole bunch of cameras to show them, and I showed them a number of cameras, they would reach the point where they were unable to make a decision because they had too much choice and it was confusing to them. It was much easier for them to have a limited choice and say, here's the pros and cons of each of these. Okay, I'll pick this one. It's better for me. But you show them 10 properties or 10 cameras, whatever it is, and it's too much to choose from when there's too much selection. And there's also, it's really funny because this is the best time to buy a home is when there's lots of selection and it's a buyer's market. But buyers at that point invariably are like, well, there's always going to be a better one around the corner and maybe prices will go down. And they just don't buy. And then the market solidifies and it goes away from them. And they're like, oh, why didn't I buy?
Yes.
And they pay, $100,000 more than they had to for a house that was not as good as the ones we were seeing.
Yes. And I will say to them, I had this actually with one of my very first clients who was a buyer, and we were looking at homes, and the very first house, this is when I learned, don't show the best house first. Show it at the end, because then they began to realize the value of the house. If you show them the nice house at the end of the tour, they've looked at all the crap and they go, okay, now they can appreciate it. And so one thing that we find hard as realtors is because we're looking at properties all the time, we're seeing the value early, sooner than the client. So we really have to replicate that process for them.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. I mean, you want people to see good choices within their price point and be able to make the best selection from them. And but sometimes you hand them, you take the horse to the water and right off the bat, but the horse just doesn't know that that's the best water they're going to get because it's the only water they've ever seen. It's a horrible analogy. It's a horrible analogy.
It is true though. Like, so often what we do, seriously though, I do I can remember him standing in the middle of the house going, could it be so easy?
Yeah.
And then it took 6 more months. And we bought a house by the same builder down the road for $25,000 more. And this is when the market was at $450,000.
Right. That's a significant amount, difference in value at that time. That's like, yeah. So when he said, could it be that easy, and then didn't buy it, was it under contract too quickly? They didn't circle back, or they just didn't want to take the first house they saw? And
so then we went and looked at, I think we looked at 10 properties.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I'll just wait and see what's out there. And so we waited. And of course, what happens is when you wait, when you're a buyer, if you see a property you like, and then you wait, then somebody else comes in, and then the price goes up. Yeah. So the realtor called me, we've got an offer coming in, and he's like, I don't want to compete. Right. And I tell people that now, like, if you're not willing to put in a good offer now in a multiple offer situation, just don't put it in, because you're just raising the price.
Correct. Yeah. You're just helping to bring the market up by playing in that sandbox when you're not actually going to win. At the same time, I have seen offers, and we were just talking about this, but I've been on the receiving end of offers where we go multiple offers and none of them reach the asking price.
Not in right now, but yeah. Same here. Yeah. And so what I tell clients is, in that case, okay, maybe we're not going to come in full pop, but I want you to come in with a big deposit.
Yeah, there's lots of things we can do to those watching and listening. There's lots of things we can do. Price is usually the most important element, but sometimes the seller has really specific dates they need to meet. Sometimes, a buyer might not have much of a deposit. They're a first-time buyer, but they're offering maybe $10,000 more than your clients. But on the whole, the contract as it's written by you, by your great realtor, it may not be as much money, but it may have more. It may bring more confidence to the seller that you'll get to the finish line, and that's the most important piece that they need to know. Because you can write anything. Also,
they may just like your client.
Yeah.
So how your realtor presents your client is so important.
Yeah. Yeah. We are representatives of our clients. Absolutely. So how our interaction is with our colleagues on the other side of the negotiation table is really important. It flavors the whole scenario.
Yeah. It's like salt and vinegar. Okay, let's get going with these stats, man.
Let's talk stats.
Stats rock. Okay, so I will tell you that I saw them come out today, courtesy of my lovely assistant, Danielle. Can you see, which one are you looking at now?
We're just looking at the title page there, Jane. So moving forward.
Okay. So these were put together literally at 9 a.m. this morning. So here we are. May 3rd stats, net unconditional sales, 1,116, and new listings, 1,516, and active listings are 1,454.
So nice to see that getting up above the 1,200 mark. Yeah.
At the same time, over the last week, it is being quite busy. And I do find at the end of the month, when people are looking, oh my gosh, another mortgage payment, or oh my gosh, another rental payment, that they're motivated to move. So new listings 305 and pending 280.
Yep. Decreasing prices though, 50 decreased prices. And that's pretty significant. And I've been observing that, a number of properties listing and then making price adjustments, sometimes just $100 down, but still, maybe they put the property up to market, they put it out to multiple offers and had delayed offers, let's say. And then there was crickets when it came time to review offers. And there may have been somebody willing to pay their price, but they just didn't they were expecting they'd have to compete, and then they didn't. And I'm finding a lot of that too, where people are just exhausted, realtors and buyers. And so they're saying, well, if they're set up to do multiple offers, obviously, and I don't want to pay more than asking price, I'm just not going to bother, like we were just discussing. So
what I've been doing is in some cases I have the multiple offers, and in other cases I've just been doing 24 hours. And I find that takes the pressure off the buyer, that if they're interested, they just write the offer.
Yeah. So when you say 24 hours, you're saying you're asking, as a listing agent, the listing agent is asking for 24 or 48 hours for the offers to be open, so that offers can come in at any time. The seller can choose to accept an offer at any time without waiting if they like one of the offers that comes in. They're not saying, I'm going to look at offers in 5 days at a certain date and time. Please bring your offer then. I won't consider anything before that.
Like a regular market.
Yeah, more of a regular market, although in a regular market, we don't generally say, please leave your offers open 24 hours.
And the reason why we're doing that is just to give people who have viewed the property a chance if they do want to write an offer.
Yeah.
Okay, so monthly sales summary.
Yeah. So median prices are up there. Victoria, the city of Victoria and Vic West are 1,150,000, which is on par with what I think we're both seeing. Oak Bay is way up there at 1,654,000. 31 sales in Oak Bay, 65. I can't read that. I need to get my own man glasses. 65 in Victoria. Yeah, I mean, Saanich East is a larger geographical area, so it's not surprising to see 191 sales there. And price point is just slightly higher than Victoria, I see.
That's because this data includes waterfront properties, because I thought I didn't want to filter it out, because it does, and that brings the average price up. It doesn't affect the median price, though. Right.
Yeah. Good points. So what are you seeing in the Peninsula and the West Shore? Are you noticing anything from the stats here that catch your attention?
Yeah, I think that we're more active in North Saanich and Central Saanich than before. I think often Central Saanich is missed, kind of like View Royal. It's a shoulder district between, North Saanich and the ferries in Sydney. Yeah. And I think it's become it's becoming more popular. It's a great community, and they have a little downtown, and so.
Yeah, I've been really recommending Central Saanich to folks who are trying to find some nice lifestyle without being in the center of it all. But there's some nice villages, and the price point's just that little bit lower. It's, as you said, it's between the two centers. In this case, on the peninsula, that would be Sydney. But there's some great value on the peninsula, I think.
Esquimalt is pretty low, though, with only 16. Same with View Royal. And of those, I sold 2 of those last month in View Royal.
Good work. Yeah. It's funny because, Esquimalt's a great place. It's always been a little bit undervalued compared to some of the other areas. It's got lots of wonderful waterfront, some great views, a bit of a mix of housing, which is one of the reasons I think that, averages come down and maybe not as desirable for some folks. You have to, it's accessible. Its accessibility is a little limited, but not badly.
View Royal?
No, Esquimalt.
Oh, yeah.
Through the bridges, right?
Yeah. Agreed. So the interesting thing about Metchosin, which has only 7 sales and the Highland 4, is the reason why the sales are so low is because there's no inventory.
Right. Yeah.
I think there's 4 houses listed in Metchosin right now.
And there's some really great waterfront properties in Metchosin and some high value properties. I've seen Metchosin's really taken off in the last 6 months or so, or at least more than that, probably. You live in Metchosin, you're a little more connected with that, but values have really, I've got some buyers for the area, and I'm seeing prices that I'm just shaking my head at. Because I would say Metchosin and Highlands have in the past been kind of, similar, I guess, in price point, but Metchosin is really making a difference now.
I think Metchosin, though, has a very strong community. We have an active We have a couple of active Facebook pages, and there's a sense of community with the activities we do, like the fair in the fall and all of that. Okay, let's go to condos. 160 sales in Victoria and Vic West with a median price at 500.
So the Victoria is a smaller geographical area. It's the area that has the most condos, so the most density. So we see 160 sales versus, Saanich at 47. But 501 as a median price point, that seems low to me, actually. What do you think?
Well, it depends if they're 1 or 2 bedrooms. I'm pricing out a 2-bedroom condo right now. We're going in at $429 this week.
This is an older condo.
It's an older condo in a great building on Fairfield with a good contingency fund. It's being well managed and it's being remediated. So
this is a property you're listing.
Yeah.
Hey, so you heard it here, folks. Call Jane.
2-bed, 1 bath, and it's a lower level, so it's a first level, so it has a garden too.
Nice. Okay, I might have to think on that. I have a 2-bed, 1 bath coming up as well on View Street at 400. Yes. Some age restricted, 19 plus, no rentals, but it allows.
Mine is not age restricted.
Okay.
Which is a good point, because the age restriction brings the price down.
It brings, anything that affects your ability to bring people into it affects your value. So certainly. So all that being said, yes, I mean, a 2-bedroom, 2-bath is going to be worth $500,000 any day of the week almost, or more, depending on. And I found actually for the last few years that's been the case. Like, seems like a 2-bed, 2-bath around 500,000 plus or minus. Things have come up in value, but condos haven't made the same kind of movements that houses have made.
So I'm just looking like in general at these statistics, and I'm seeing high price points are in Sydney and North Saanich for condos. Mm-hmm. And then followed by Esquimalt, Saanich East, Saanich West, and Souk and Langford. And then we get into the 500,000 price range, and we're seeing Victoria, Oak Bay, and Colwood, which I think that's affected by the development down in Two Waters.
Yeah, the newer construction will bring up the price. Especially when there's limited selection. There were only 5 sales in Colwood. So it's a little harder to look at that one as a stat. But Souk is always less money than Victoria, generally speaking, unless somebody is selling luxury condos in Souk. Langford, there's always lots of selection, generally speaking. But if you're buying in Sydney or North Saanich, and actually, I don't even know where there are condos in North Saanich. Where are there condos?
I think they're on the border. They're on the border of
Sydney and North Saanich. Right?
Yeah.
So, but those are going to be generally retirement home, like a little bit higher end, perhaps something more geared towards retirement community.
Are you characterizing the population of Sydney?
I am not. It's actually a good mix in Sydney. But if you go to Sydney, you'll find that people do drive slower.
Actually, I went for lunch with my daughter, and she noticed like there was a parking space for people's push carts. So it's interesting.
I've always found Sydney, even when I was a younger man, quite a nice feeling, a nice place to live, a nice place to visit, great food, good community. But it does have a large number of retirement community.
And I think the reason for that is that it's flat, so it's easier to get around.
Yep.
So less hills, and it is beautiful. And you're right about the restaurants.
There's also, golf courses. There's a large boating community out there, and so I think people with discretionary money who are wanting to retire and have a great retirement income, retirement lifestyle, have a boat in one of the marinas as well, and come and go and Anyway.
Okay, so let's look at let's go to the next one, third line down, single family total all areas 564, down 1.7% from last month and 246% over last year, which
And
is
when we
not
say that, yeah, when we say last month, we are talking about the April stats here. So the last month being March.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And 246% over last year. Last year we were not doing well. So let's just focus on this month versus last month. Average house price over Greater Victoria, 1,139,000. So we've definitely gone over that million mark, but we're down 3.2%. And the median was at 1,000,001. Isn't that interesting?
Right at the million mark. So yeah, we've reached 1 million for a house in Greater Victoria as a median price point, and that's a big step for us. And 32.3. Well, actually, let's look at the median price, 29.2% up over last year. And prices really hadn't changed much, even because of the pandemic at that point.
No, I think they only went down 10%, then they rebounded up.
Yeah.
And skipped over.
Yeah. So we're well up over last year, even without the pandemic.
Yeah. So this month, last year, we sold 163 units compared to 564 this year. Wow. Okay. Condos, 331 units sold. That's 12.2% less than last month. I'm not even going to talk about last year. The average was 534,000 with a median of 489. And that is down from 554. And I believe that from last month, and the median is up from last month.
It's really interesting to see the difference in median rise in value between condos and houses, where there's a 10% spread. Houses have accelerated, have come up in value, 29.2% median price over last year, where condos only jumped 19.3%. And that's consistent too with the row townhouses, same rise in value. You can see that the strata properties have lagged behind the single families, and that might be COVID related, with people making a run to the rural areas. And then if you look above that to, this stat of 29.2% for total areas, single family, is the mix of the two above it, the Greater Victoria and the other areas. And the other areas, 21, that's only 21 sales in other areas, but at 47.8% rise in value in the median value.
And that includes the islands.
Yeah.
I think that's important to note that a lot of people have moved to the islands and outer Victoria, like CRD area. Yeah. So
there's been a lot of real hot moving to recreational properties and to outlying areas. And there's been a huge increase in demand and in value. Yeah.
Okay, let's look at, so 135 row townhouses sold. The average price was $712, and the median was $690. That to me says there's a bit of downward pressure, and this is up 4.1% over last month, and the median price is up 6.2% over last month.
Yep. Yeah. And you think there's downward pressure on prices, you said, because the average is higher than the median? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So the average, the median is looking at the middle number, and the average is looking at the total divided by all the units.
If you owned a manufactured home, by the way, a year ago, according to this stats, you've made a really good investment. They've really gone up. And again, that's, I think, because of the difference in value, the gap between a single family home and a manufactured home widened and widened, and it just had to springboard up a little bit to match it. It's just the cost of living in Victoria has gotten so high for a regular home that people maybe started looking to alternative sources of shelter, like manufactured homes.
Well, I find also that the condo and the manufactured home market are kind of related. So when the condo prices go up, the manufactured home prices follow.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the issues with those homes is the land on which they're leased. So some literally you are on a month-to-month tenancy on Craigflower. And I had a client buying there, and we literally could not get in touch with the landowners to determine how long the lease was going to be. And even though the house passed, the lease didn't. So we had to walk away.
Mm-hmm. Now, there are some, if someone is looking for manufactured home, let's just talk really briefly about this, but it's a really complex one. I actually made a business decision not to sell manufactured homes, either list them or work with buyers on them, partly because they're very complex, partly because they just, mostly because they're really complex. But that being said, Jane referenced leasehold. A lot of them are on lease. You buying essentially a piece of equipment on a piece of land that you are then leasing on a month-to-month or annual basis. You get a little more security if you can find one. There are townhouses, for example, that it's the same kind of idea, but they are on a 99-year lease or 20, sometimes 20. There's actually most of their leases are less time now, so 26 years or so remaining. But that's better security than one that's annual or month to month. But there's also, like at Summergate Village and there's a co-op out in Langford where you're buying a share in the land yourself, and you have more control over that because you're not leasing from a third party. You are an owner in that land. You own a share in a corporation that owns the land that your unit is on. And then there's Summergate Village, which is a Bearland strata complex. So manufactured home, and I would sell Summergate Village, but a manufactured home is more than just what you're buying there. It's the land underneath it, and the value is really important to understand those differences.
And the reason why Andrew's saying it's more complicated is because they are quite like a car. So you do have to get them checked up, and you have to have a up-to-date electrical permit. And if you do any work to the electrical, you need to get it re-permitted, and it's a big pain. You need a CSA sticker. You can't sell it without it. And so the proof of that sometimes is on a cupboard, and if somebody renovates and they take it out, oh my goodness, so you have to get the new electrical permit and then overlooking the lease. So I have a specialist that I work with who I refer those out to because she's very familiar with these parks and knows everything about them.
Yeah. Specialists.
Okay,
moving on.
Moving on, average single family home. So I think we are what we were saying this morning. I don't know if we said it online, but we are feeling like things have settled down. And so we're seeing the average price, the outliers are going away, and we're at 1,150,000 or just below.
Right. And, it's hard to know with these graphs, what the next month will show. Is it going to be a pop up again? Is it going to be down? But, generally speaking, I think we're reaching plateau. So we'll see kind of, flirting around this sort of price point for a while. What are your thoughts on that? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And I think what happens is, and you can see it here, like you see a little pop.
I can't see where you're pointing on the screen, but.
Okay.
Well, in month and year?
June of 2020, the market popped up, right, and then it rose consistently until January, and then I think since then, January we had hardly any volume, like any inventory, and so things have reduced at that point. But now we're seeing things just kind of calming down. I think it's a good thing.
Yep.
It means when you look at a house, you can actually think about it.
But not too long.
Okay, condos look very consistent. A little bit of a bump up in January again, but...
Yeah, condos have been kind of boring in a sense. Not a lot of, huge appreciation. They did kind of bolster But yeah, it's interesting to see if we go back, both condos and houses, average selling prices has dropped between March and April in both houses and condos.
But the thing is with condos that we are not seeing is that in the newer condos, the square footage is a lot less. So the price per square foot is actually higher.
True. If we're seeing more newer condos sell versus older condos, they all tend to get smaller over time.
And the townhouse market has been doing well.
Look at that. Yeah. It's, again, with housing prices having reached $1 million, people are definitely looking to townhouses as an alternative. And so that's putting that activity there.
And the reason why the townhouse, I think, is relatively less than the condos is because you're paying a monthly assessment. So the monthly assessment is paying for the maintenance of that property. And so that's the difference there. Sorry,
can you explain? I didn't quite understand what you're trying to, what's your point?
It makes sense to me. So, for instance, if you could buy $1 million house, or you could buy a $700,000 or $750,000 condo,
right,
and your monthly assessment is, let's say, $500,
right.
And so with that $500, you're actually financing probably about.
Right. So you're saying that someone buying a house, they don't take the strata fees into account. It's really funny because but you still have to pay for a new roof for your house. You still need to, worry about updating this, that, and the other. Those fees you're paying when you buy a townhouse go towards your yard maintenance and your future costs and so forth. So it's funny that the financing takes that into account and diminishes your ability to buy a townhouse over a house, whereas the costs are going to actually be equivalent. They're just more explicit with a townhouse.
Yeah. And it depends on how, as we saw with our interview with Russell, it depends on how that all factors in.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Total active listing, a little bit of a bump up in April. We're now, as you said, over 1,200. So we're up around 14 something. What would we say? 1425 or so?
Yeah, right. I think that was the number, 1425. And if things follow the same pattern, and we have seen it sometimes where, if you look between March 2020 and April 2020, almost had the beginning of a dip down again, maybe, but it was more of it was a rise, but you can see how it might have, it wasn't as high a rise as the next month. But generally speaking, we have these curves that happen annually. And sometimes there's a double bump, but we can see that we're starting into our annual curve here in April 2021, and it's nice to see that it, if you look in past years, where the bump begins to happen is usually a little bit earlier in the year, but we are starting to bump up in value, and we're just so low. But keep in mind, though, when we look at this stat, though, it starts at 1,200 units. So it doesn't mean that we're not near the bottom of, we're starting at 1,200. There's still a lot of lines beneath us. We've just taken them out for illustration purposes.
And I like to look at that with this slide because I think that it's important to see. So this is a normal, what you're talking about, the double bump. Mm-hmm. So in the May and September market, and then last year we peaked in June and July at a very low number. When we got into the market in 2006, Andrew, there were 3,600 listings.
Yeah.
So we're at, again, just over
a third of that. Well, we at one point we were at 1/3 of that. That's, just absolutely stunningly low inventory. So the fact that we're moving up is great, but it's still really, really low compared to historical averages.
Yeah. And if you look at the sales over time, you can see, we were quite consistent from July to October. And even in November and December, we were much higher than we were normally. Mm-hmm. Normally we're about 400 sales. I think we were over 600, and we peaked in March this year. So we'll see what happens. Mm-hmm. And I think the thing is what we were talking about earlier, the psychology of the buyer. When you see more choice, you're less likely to purchase because you're like, oh, well, now I have time. Oh, I don't feel the urgency.
Yeah. Yeah. Contradiction, but it's very common to see.
I used to have military buyers come in on their moves, and I'd be like, okay, you're coming in on Monday. I'm going to schedule an inspection for Thursday. We'll look at properties Tuesday, Wednesday. And then I would just tell the inspector what property we were looking at. And now I just had buyers come in, and we were looking for 5 days. Everything was on deferred offers. So we were like, okay, well, pick the house you think you want, and hopefully we'll get it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had to counsel buyers to say, like, okay, you really like this property, but they're looking at offers on Tuesday. There's another property that's pretty good, and they're looking at offers on Monday. I'm going to suggest you actually run on that one as well. If you don't get it, then go for the one you really like, because you might go for the one you really like and not get it as well. So get something.
It's a terrible thing to say, but nobody wants anybody. There's a lot of pressure on these people to find the perfect home in 5 days. It's like crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are still in the seller's market, but I think we're recovering. We're now under 100% list sale. So that's interesting.
At 100%, things are selling faster. At above 100%, things are selling. More properties are selling than are coming actually onto market. Yeah.
Okay, and then we're going to just finish off with our home price index. So looking at April 21st, Greater Victoria 897 compared to March 868. So these are the ideal homes that the benchmark home. Mm-hmm. And so it's just 3.3% up from last month, mm-hmm. and up 15% from last year. And 16. In the core, 15.7. Yeah. Do you want to do the next one?
Sure. In the core, 996,500 is the benchmark price for April 2021. Last month it was 968,700. So just up by about a little less than 10,000. No, sorry, 30,000.
2.9%.
Thank you. So in last year, April 2020, the benchmark price was 884.6. So that's quite a big difference. Benchmark index moving from 258.3 this month to from 251.1 last month and 229.3 last year. So up 12.6% from last year.
Yeah, I don't talk about that index because I don't think people understand it.
No, good point.
Pass.
Too many numbers.
Okay, in the peninsula, the benchmark price was 981. This is up from 931 in March and up from 813 last year. So we're up 5.4% from last month, which is important to know. Mm-hmm. And up 20% from last year.
Again, the peninsula is really hot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Condos, we're seeing something similar. Benchmark price 540 in Greater Victoria, up from 521.6 last month, and that's a 3.6% increase from last month.
Right. Whereas condos in the core 547,600 this month. That's the month of April, up from 529,100 last March 8, 2021. And then in April 2020, they were 533.6. So not a huge difference, 2.6% rise over last year.
Yeah. And in the West Shore, a big increase up to 463,200 in April 2021. That's up from 439,500 in March of this year. So that's a 10.8%, oh, sorry, 5.4% increase. And it's a 10.8% increase over last year at 417.9. And I think that's because people were moving away from shared spaces.
And I think that the West Shore was, I won't say that the prices were low in the West Shore, but they were low compared to in town. And with the influx, with the number of buyers and the low inventory, people started flocking to the outlying area. And there was just that much more room for growth in terms of pricing and competition. And there's some great there's a lot of condo selection in the West Shore, but it did get eaten up. And I had a number of investors buy in last year. They're probably pretty happy that they did in the West Shore. But it's interesting because the peninsula has only had a 0.1% change over last year. So even so, the benchmark price for April 2021 is $501,300. Last year it was $501,900. There's really been almost no difference in price change overall. There's a bit of a bump over last month, but really not. It's gone down 0.1% over last year.
Yeah, interesting. Well, I think that speaks to the fact that people aren't moving into like condos in outer areas, right?
I guess it depends what we define as outer, because I was consider the peninsula and the West Shore the similar distance from the core.
Yeah, but West Shore includes Souk, I guess, too. I don't know. What I said just doesn't make sense.
Usually Jane does make sense.
Okay, let's just do the last one. Row townhouses, 669,000. That's up from 644 last month and way up over 597 last year. So that's 12.2% over last year, but only 3.9% over last month. And in the core, we're seeing 735,200 for a benchmark price in the core. That's up from 714,500 last month and way up over last year at 661,700. And so that's a 2.9% increase over last month and 11.1% over last year.
Yes. So that was the core. I lost the plot. Okay. So
yeah, you're on West Shore, babe.
Okay. All right. So West Shore, the benchmark price for West Shore in April 2021 was $569,300. Pretty significant difference from the core itself, which was at $735,200. Remember, but that's up over last month at $540,900 and last year at $514,200, which is a 5.3% increase over last month and a 10.7% increase over last year. Peninsula, though, again, pretty high increase in values. You want to take this, Jane?
Sure. 670,700 was the benchmark price for April 2021 compared to 638,900 in March. That's last month. Over last year, though, it's gone up over $100,000, actually just less, at 570,400. And so the price change from last month was 5%, sorry, and over last year is 17.6%. So I'd just like to say that while I do this, I cannot see you. I am only looking at the numbers.
Okay. You don't need to see me. There's not much to see. It's all good.
I know it's pretty dry, but you know what? I really like these because to me, they give me perspective because I feel like things are happening. And it's nice to see the number to know they're actually happening. Do you feel that way?
I do. Although, for me, it's the difference between when you're in the trenches working and you kind of can feel the change happening. You don't actually see it in the stats until later, so we can kind of go, oh yeah, that's why I felt that way. And the stats will give us an indication of maybe what the future holds, but it also is still a past event. So, it's really important to be in touch and in the know and be active in the market and we talk to our colleagues and we watch, comments on the various social sites and just sort of pick up through osmosis almost what's going on. So, Jane references sometimes, high what do you call it? High intellect people, not intellect.
Knowledge.
High knowledge. Yeah. This isn't about how intellectual you are, but it's about where you focus your attention. But, I've worked with people who might want to know the stats and they want to know everything and hear all the stats to know where things are going. There might be other people who just make emotional decisions and they don't care what the stats are saying. They just want to know if this is the right thing for them in their hearts.
Nurturers.
We as agents will pick up a little bit of everything as we're out in the marketplace, and we try to, be able to communicate it back out in the language that you speak in a way that is comfortable for you.
Now you're talking my language.
There you go. There you go. But, people will sometimes, I consider it a science and an art, pricing a home. And somebody who tries to price their home just from the stats is neglecting some of the psychology that's out there in terms of what is happening in the market between buyers and sellers and the exhaustion that maybe some buyers and frustration that some buyers are facing. So, strategy that worked in the past may not work today. It's really important to just really have your finger on the pulse, as well as, have the knowledge and have all of the tools available to you. Yes.
Modern tools, old-fashioned service.
That's my tagline. Thank you.
And mine is local expertise and global presence.
Nice. Nice.
And I think that's, it's funny. I totally agree with what you're saying. And the thing is, so there's been some stuff in the news about agents in other cities, and they're a different kettle of fish. I do find the agents in Victoria to be very professional. But that being said, the trends that are happening in real estate are happening all over the world. And so things are, I think, with the fact that maybe we're coming out of COVID, maybe that's partially to blame why the market's cooling off a little bit. And I don't even think it's cooling off. It's just giving people time to think.
Yeah. I mean, I have a pet theory, and I haven't, tried to prove this in the stats, but I have a pet theory that whenever there's a change, whether it's a change in the weather or a change in economy for sure, but even could just be a change in seasons, that people get distracted with something else. And that drive that they had for buying a home, there's that song, "To Everything There Is a Season." And, where people's attention goes, maybe to real estate, it may be away from real estate. And it depends on what their needs are at the time. As we get to be closer to summertime and people going outdoors more, maybe they're not feeling the need and the crunch to get out of that little 1-bedroom condo that they've been staying in as much. And so they're maybe not feeling that same urgency to go and find a home immediately. And they're going to go and enjoy the outdoor spaces that they, rather than spend their time, although we're great people, they don't want to spend all their time with us looking at homes. Maybe you, Jane.
Okay, so I have a similar theory, and then we're going to close off. But my theory is that when people spend time together, that's when they make big decisions. So after Christmas, after March break, after Easter, after COVID, all these things, they look at each other and they go, "We should move," or "I don't want to live with you anymore," or, "I do want to live with you." And so major decisions are happening based on people coming together and actually having time to look at each other face to face, mano a mano, and decide.
And realize they don't want to be together anymore. That's funny. Good theory, Jane. Yeah, absolutely. I can agree with that. And that could be the decision to make a move, or the decision could be, hey, we've got some time to talk about it. Maybe we're going to change our plans and just go get a rental now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
It is.
Okay, so we don't have any comments to respond to this week. I just want to remind people that if you are watching on YouTube, to please subscribe. And don't forget, we are here every Monday. Jen Lowe is going to be coming and chatting with us next week about what's happening with the interest rates and where she thinks things are happening with mortgages.
That's really important stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's going to be some changes coming up, and it's going to be great to hear from her. Yeah.
So Andrew, tell us about yourself.
Well, I'm 6'4". I was You can reach me if you wish to reach me at 250-360-6106. Jane is shaking her head. You can email me at info@andrewplank.com or check out my website, andrewplank.com. And Jane, how about you? They probably want to reach out to you.
Okay, I was going to break into song. But anyway, my name's Jane Johnston. I'm with the Briar Hill Group, and you can reach me at 250-744-0775 and email me at briarhillgroup@gmail.com. All right, my friend, as usual, it was awesome.
Thank you, Jane. Always fun. Good way to spend a Monday morning.
Thanks for the repartee.
Yes. Okay. Well,
have a good week.
You too. Bye.
Sell.
Sell.
Bye.
Bye.